Hello, everyone. Welcome. I can see few of you joining in. Just take a moment to arrive. We will begin in a minute. Okay. So before we start, I want to ask you something simple. Like, let us prepare ourselves for the session with some quick questions. Are you ready? Hmm. Okay. Okay. So let people join in. However, I would like to ask this question so that whoever is even watching this sometime later, they get the entire flow of this session. So the first question is, when was the last time you made a decision, later went back and questioned it? Today's session is going to be extremely important. I mean, all the sessions are important. However, this is something we all are facing sometime, and that becomes um, unresolvable certain time that you're not able to get the answer to it, because we keep on doing that. Like, you make decisions, then you doubt it. So if you have questioned your decisions many times, try to type in yes if that's happened recently. So have you ever faced any time that you made a decision and later questioned it? If yes, I would like to hear from you. Has that happened anytime recently? Okay, I don't see any answers. However, I would say that's exactly what we are going to explore today. So let's begin now. So, coming to this topic, have you ever noticed you know what the right decision is, and you still can't trust yourself enough to take it? You start questioning it. Was that the right choice? Should I have done something else? What if this doesn't work? And it's not because you don't think, it's because you don't fully trust your own decision. Tonight, we are not going to fix our decisions here. We are fixing the voice, the internal voice inside you that keeps doubting, you know, those decisions. We will understand why that happens. Are you with me? Okay. So, and if you are joining me for the first time, Let me also talk about myself that I'm Ishita Bakchi. I'm a life coach specializing in emotional intelligence, a counseling psychologist, a DMIT counselor, and I also work with healing practices like pranic healing, Reiki, and crystal healing. And what this really allows me to do is to help people understand themselves at a much deeper level, not just on the surface of their thoughts. However, at the level of emotions, patterns, and inner conditioning, we'll understand about it. Because most people don't actually struggle with decisions, they struggle with trusting themselves while making those decisions. That does this land? I mean, this is so true, right? We sometimes don't trust ourselves while making any decision, and there are a lot of factors impacting it. And that's exactly where I work. I integrate emotional intelligence with deeper psychological and healing work to help people understand why they feel the way they feel, why they keep second guessing themselves, and why self doubt keeps showing up even when they know what to do. So they can finally move from confusion to clarity, from overthinking to inner trust, and start feeling confident in their own choices again. Self doubt is rarely loud or obvious. Have you ever, you know, tried thinking about it? In fact, in individuals who are high functioning, responsible, and self aware, it becomes incredibly refined. It doesn't disrupt your life dramatically. It quietly shapes how you move through it. It shows up in micro moments. Let's take an example. You draft a message and feel the need to read it multiple times, not because something is wrong, because something inside you is unsure that have I written all the points? Was the message tone, professional? A lot of XYZ thoughts comes in mind. You make a decision, and before you can feel settled, you look outward for reassurance. How many times have you felt looking for external reassurance for your small decisions that you feel is right? You feel something strongly, a clear emotional response, and within seconds you begin to question it. Try to be honest. Like, how many times you strongly feel something like that? And over time, you don't even realize when it happened, but you slowly start outsourcing your inner authority. You begin trusting others' perspective more than your own inner knowing. Even for smallest decision, like planning for some event, even you are responsible for it. However, you will wait for the external factors or external approval to make that happen. And eventually, it's not that you don't have clarity, it's that you don't feel safe acting on your clarity. Yes, I could see Daniel saying yes. I Okay, so let us go to a little more depth of it. Like when I worked with someone who from outside seemed extremely clear and capable, they were able to articulate well, they were intelligent and doing well in their career. But internally, every decision carried a quiet hesitation. They would analyze, reflect, even arrive at a conclusion, and then pause. Why? Because they needed someone else to confirm, saying to them, yes, this is right. So the moment that comes, there is a full stop. And what stood out wasn't confusion, it was the absence of internal safety. Because self trust is not just a cognitive process, it's an emotional and probably physiological experience. And when we explored deeper, it became clear that this pattern wasn't created overnight. I would say just go back and see that if you have been a person who used to make decisions for yourself, you won't say that from tomorrow you started avoiding making that decisions or started doubting it. It won't happen overnight. It had been shaped over time, maybe months, maybe years, through moments where their voice was corrected, dismissed, or overridden. Try to recall a moment where probably similar incident would have happened, where your statements or your views were dismissed, thinking it was not right, or frequent correction saying you don't do this right, you don't do that right. And that is something extremely, you know, making that moment more uncontrollable, because where being right mattered more than being self connected. And slowly their system learned it's safer to check outside than to rely within. So, with all of this, it always used to come that, okay, it sounds so terrible that even if it feels right, you will always look for, okay, let me cross check, let me validate it, let's seek for an approval. Isn't it seems like losing your own true self? I mean, I feel it's so terrible. In fact, when I first heard that event or story, it was really not acceptable, because the situation is that that becomes like your mind becomes conditioned about this. And this is something extensively highlighted in emotional intelligence research, including the work of Daniel Goleman. When our internal signals, our thoughts, emotion instincts are repeatedly invalidated, right? The brain adapts because a brain's primary role is not confidence, it is safety. And over time, it begins to associate external approval with safety and self reliance with uncertainty. So instead of asking, what do I feel is right, the mind start asking, what will be accepted and what will be approved. This is how the shift happens from inner guidance to external dependence. And the more this pattern repeats, the weaker our connection becomes with our own internal signals. Not because they disappear, because we stop trusting their accuracy. So, what we call self doubt is often not lack of confidence, it is deeply conditioned response, probably a learned way of staying safe. In environments where trusting yourself may not have felt supported or even allowed, you will see this, probably not to generalize, but many a times uh, people do get adapt in situation where, say, in certain places, women are not allowed to speak their mind out, they are not allowed to make decisions, And that's where it becomes like a condition that external validation will help them to move ahead with their decision. And I've often heard this from my client. And once you see it this way, it changes the question completely. The question is no longer what is wrong with me. It becomes what did I learn that made me stop trusting myself? So let's not just understand this, like let's experience it for a moment. So I want you to think of a recent decision. Let's drill down that decision, something small or something you have been overthinking. Now instead of analyzing it, just notice your body. Where did you feel a slight contraction, a tightness or hesitation? Like it could be in your chest, your stomach, your throat. Just observe it without trying to change it. This is where self doubt lives, not just in your thoughts, however, in your nervous system. And now, gently ask yourself, if I wasn't trying to be right, what would feel true for me right now? I will repeat, if I wasn't trying to be right, what would feel true for me right now? No forcing, no overthinking, just noticing what arises. So, most people try to fix self doubt at the level of thinking. They try to convince themselves, motivate themselves, and as you just experienced, self trust is not built by forcing better thoughts. Can it be? Had it ever, or have you ever been successful in doing that? True to be yourself, true to yourself completely, that whether that has happened. It is built by creating safety within your own system. And this is exactly what we are going to explore next. How do you move from constantly questioning yourself to building a stable internal sense of trust, where your decisions don't need approval because they feel aligned? Do you want to know that? Okay, so let's understand this properly in detail with some pointers. The first pointer is the brain builds trust through experience. Your brain doesn't automatically trust you, it learns trust based on past experiences. Like if your decisions were questioned or corrected, criticized or overridden, your brain records a pattern. Like it will start accepting that my decision, my judgment is not reliable. And that will lead to a level where before even questioning your own decision, your mind will start adapting that, okay, this will not be accepted by my family. My husband is not going to agree with that, or my father is not going to approve it. So these are certain things which becomes like a pattern, and you start becoming that person where every time you start questioning your own decisions again and again. Second is error detection system. There's a part of your brain called the anterior cingulate cortex. We already discussed about this word earlier. It constantly scans for mistakes. When it becomes overactive, you start second guessing even normal decisions. Like, say, even our smallest decision, you will think about another option to it, which probably won't be needed. The third is emotional memory and conditioning. So your brain remembers not just events, however, how you felt during that event. So if past decisions led to, say, embarrassment or rejection or guilt, your system associates the same decisions with that discomfort. So if I have to be like precise, whenever such situation comes up where a person is constantly having that doubting, self-doubting pattern, that's because some of the events at the past, that memory has been stuck in their mind, where it's not allowing you to move ahead. It's always thinking that, okay, any decision I make, that will always be rejected, or they will make fun of me, or probably a guilt. So this is important. You don't doubt yourself because you lack, you probably uh, doesn't have the ability. You doubt yourself because your system hasn't learned that it's safe to trust yourself, right? So let's shift this from your understanding into practice in 5 simple steps. Are you ready with that? Okay. So, because self trust, as I said, is not built by thinking differently, motivation, nothing. It's built by experiencing yourself differently. So, step one, if you want, you can take notes with that. And if at all you missed, probably you can actually go through the recording, because this will be uploaded. So you can actually go through it. However, I would say that I will go slow. You can take down those pointers. That is the step one. Recall without judgment. I want you to think of 3 decisions you made in your life. It can be big or small. Just take 5 to 6 seconds. Remember 3 of them. And as each decision comes up, notice your first emotional reaction to it, not the story, the feeling. Okay? The second step is separate the fact from the emotional memory. Okay? Now, gently ask yourself, did this decision truly fail? Or has my mind labeled it as a failure over time? Okay? So you're going to check that. Was it really a failure, or it's just that my mind has labeled it as failed? Because the brain has a natural bias, it holds on to negative experiences more strongly than neutral or positive ones. This everybody would agree, right? Anything probably in our life, we are always negative biased at times. We always think about, what if I can't, or what if I wouldn't be able to, or what if XYZ. So all that negative things starts coming in. So what you remember as a mistake may actually be an incomplete story, right? Are you with me? I think that is making much clearer that how do we put that, how do you go ahead with the step. Now step 3 is compassionate inquiry. Now go one layer deeper. Basically, this was one of the interview which I heard from Gabor Matis. Uh, that is approach, that is compassionate inquiry. Now go one layer deeper. Ask yourself, at the time I made this decision, what was I needing, feeling, or trying to protect? Mhm. Maybe you were choosing safety. Maybe you were seeking some belonging. Maybe you were doing the best you could with the awareness you had at that time. So just be compassionate with yourself. Next step is body awareness check. So that is again actually inspired by Bessel van der Kolk's somatic work. So when I read that article on this, that was also amazing, where you reflect on the decision that you made, notice your body again. So when you reflect what decision, like say, as I said, you make that three decision, just think of, notice your body. Does it feel tight, heavy, contracted? Or is there even a slight sense of release as you understand it differently? Because your body doesn't respond to logic, it responds to how safe the experience feels. So you would see that, say, when feel nervous, you feel some sensation in your stomach, right? And if there is some panicky situation, your heartbeat start rushing and your chest tightens up. These are certain things your body experiences, you know, because you're not feeling safety. Then the next step, that is step 5, that's last, update your internal evidence. Now ask yourself this final question: what this decision teach me that I carry today? Okay, it's very important. Maybe it taught you your boundaries, maybe it gave you clarity, maybe it redirected you to something better, right? So I remember, in my life experience, there was one situation where um, I had to change my study field. So that point of time, I had a guilt that, okay, I could have completed, then I would have become this. However, now when I think over, I see that I have been redirected to something better, which I was best at. Does this resonate with you? This is how you rebuild your self trust. Not by forcing confidence, not by updating your internal evidence, by showing your mind and your body, even when I didn't get it perfect, I was still learning, adapting, and growing. And when your system begins to see that, you stop fearing your decisions because you start trusting that whatever you choose, you will handle it. Now, after this, would you be able to trust your decisions going forward? If not, I would like to probably go through this 5 step in a peace of mind. Don't do it in a hurry. Take a separate time out. Maybe if you need 15 to 20 minutes, take a very complete, silent, safe space where you do it with yourself and try putting that across. Okay? And then say to yourself, whatever I choose, I will handle it. Okay, so I want to leave you with this: self trust is not something you're born with, it is something you build by understanding yourself and definitely not judging yourself. And if you're being feeling stuck in this pattern where you keep questioning yourself, second guessing, and feeling unsure, you don't have to figure this out alone, because there would be people who might need help into overcoming that. And better we do it earlier, it becomes smoother. And it's highly important that we never doubt our decisions and don't make it like a pattern. Don't condition yourself to believe that your decisions fail. You never fail. You either learn or you succeed in it. So I offer a space where we understand your patterns deeply, your decision making, your emotional patterns, your direction, so you can start feeling clear within yourself. And if this resonated with you, you can message me clarity, or maybe you can check the link. That is, you can schedule a discovery call via Topmate. No pressure. You just have to click the link to have a one-on-one discussion, just a space to understand you better. You don't need any perfect decisions. You need a stronger relationship with yourself. That's it. Start believing in yourself. And thank you so much for being here. See you tomorrow. Bye.